Well, hello, Enchanted One. It is so good to be home, and it's so good to be with you folks again here from my home studio. And tonight we have a special guest. Hello, and welcome to Spirit Throw Me a Bone, your spiritual lifestyle channel, where every week we come together to cultivate our connection with the enchanted universe and coax spirit to throw us a bone. And we do this in three ways. First, we create sacred space and we signal our intention to receive gifts from spirit. Second, we flex our enchantment muscles and consult the oracles of astrology and the tarot and other divinatory tools. And third, we welcome young self. And with a beginner's mind, we explore all manner of metaphysical and consciousness raising topics. And that's what we are going to do tonight. Tonight, I am very pleased to welcome a good friend of mine, a wonderful woman. Her name is Madeleine Tobias, better known as Mady. We're going to interview her. She is the author of Dogs, God, and UFOs. So before we meet her, I just want to welcome everybody. And I see that we have a couple of people joining us already. Hello, Anne. Good to see you. And Robin says that he's trying to connect. So I don't know if there is some thing going on with the stream on YouTube or not. I hope not. Robin, if you're able to be connected, let me know. And of course, Kathleen. Welcome, Kathleen. So tonight, I actually created Sacred Space just before I started the stream. So I want to encourage you to do the same now if you haven't already. Go ahead and light your candle and settle in. I wanted to save as much time as I could to be able to speak with our guest tonight, Mady. So remember, this is your time. This is sacred time. So cuddle up next to your altar if you've got yourself one prepared. Otherwise, just light a candle or go grab a sacred object or two and settle in. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that as I go through here and check the comments again. So now, so TV is giving you trouble, but you're on the iPod. So welcome, Robin. So here we are. Let's get started. I'm going to first tell you a little bit more about our guest tonight, Madeleine Tobias. She is a retired clinical specialist in adult psychiatric and mental health nursing. So she's a psych nurse, a retired psych nurse. I used to work with a few of those back in the day. And she has had a long career working with individuals recovering from traumatic events in destructive cults, sexual trauma, and trauma while serving in the military. In private practice for over 20 years, she later worked for the Veterans Administration in one of their vet centers in White River Junction, Vermont, as a clinical coordinator and military sexual trauma specialist from 1994 until her retirement in 2012. At the Vet Center, she participated in a team supporting and debriefing Veterans Administration witnesses of 9/11 in New York City and New Jersey, and she helped to organize the VA's Horses for Heroes program and was a speaker at several Vet Center regional conferences on a variety of therapy issues. And during this time, she became an approved consultant in eye motion desensitization and reprocessing. That's EMDR. Some of you may be familiar with that, in the treatment of PTSD. Currently residing in Loudoun County, Virginia, Mady is a Reiki Master practitioner, and pre-COVID, she volunteered giving Reiki to patients and their families at both a local hospice organization and hospital. She is on the advisory board of the Loudoun Medical Reserve Corps, preparing for potential disasters and medical emergencies. And she has become a contact tracer during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mady is also a member of the Shenandoah chapter of the Virginia Master Naturalist Program, volunteering for a variety of jobs, helping and preserving wildlife in Virginia. And her special joy, she's a fellow bird nerd, her special joy is in monitoring the bluebird boxes and nests in one of the state parks during nesting season in the spring and summer. This is cool. Mady organized a group of friends in a monthly animal communication circle, helping others with understanding both their pets and the animals in the natural world. She is also a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, also known as MUFON, and serves on the Experiencer Research Team, assisting those who report contact with non-human intelligences. Other words, aliens. So, as an author, she co-wrote with Janya Lalick, Captive Hearts, Captive Minds, and Take Back Your Life. She has written chapters on recovery issues in recovery from cults and cult recovery, a clinician's guide to working with former members and families, both for the International Cultic Studies Association, and she has spoken on these issues in both the US and Canada. She has contributed a chapter for Kathleen Martin's book, Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, and How to Cope with Contact by Non-Human Entities. Mady has presented at both US and Canadian conferences for many years on recovery issues, initially for the International Cultic Studies Association and then for the Readjustment Counseling Services at their annual conferences for vet center staff. She has appeared on multiple TV and radio shows. She's such a celebrity. And now, Spirit Throw Me a Bone, including First Edition Sally, Jesse Raphael, and Oprah Winfrey. Please welcome my friend, Mady. Hello, Mady.
Gee, I did all that?
Gee. You're an accomplished woman.
I guess so. I'm old enough.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. You know, we planned this a long time ago, and now it's finally here, right?
Yeah, several months ago, yes.
Several months ago. So let me just check in. Yeah, so here we are. There's so much to talk about. So again, Mady's book, Dogs, God, and UFOs. Ta-da.
Yep.
Just came out a few months ago, right? You can get it on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's in paperback and Kindle, both.
Yeah. And I read it, and it's really just a lovely read. Very readable, and just I very much enjoyed it. It's good summer reading, fall reading, winter reading, whatever. It's your memoir, right?
It's a memoir. I wrote it because I wanted to understand me. Brenda, I have had so many weird experiences in my life, and I wanted to know how you connect them. What happens when you're 7 years old, 15, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, all of these, a bit of progression in my learning and my spiritual growth. And I didn't know how to connect them until I wrote it down. And I kept a journaled my dreams, and then I wrote the book. And I divided it into 6 parts: my growing up years, marriage, my discovery of the New Age in the 70s through smoking pot and having hallucinations and going through all kinds of mystical traditions. I think I've been every religion in the book, and at time went into a cult. For 10 years was in a cult, and then a few years of recovery, and then helping other people who were in cults. And then the 4th chapter was 18 years at the Veterans Administration. And man, working with veterans, that was the best. I love those guys and women so much. They gave their lives, their hearts, parts of their body, because they believed in something so strongly.
Right.
And it was a pleasure to work with them. And then retired, went to Virginia, moved to Virginia to be near my daughter, and grandson, and discovered the New Age again. Boom. Did many hypnotic sessions, which we can get into. I had some very interesting experiences. And then 5 years ago, discovered ufology. So that's my book in chapters. All right.
That's the short version.
That's the short version. You
That is
just
a
read the
short
whole
version.
book. You don't
Right.
have to buy it. You just read it all. So we
Well-
can start anywhere you want.
Well, why don't we just start? Since the book is a memoir and it's talking about your
Mm.
spiritual journey, why don't we start by you telling us, what type of a religion, religious practice were you born and raised with? What did you grow up with in terms of a religious?
Well, first of all, I grew up with no religious practice. We were Jewish, and I was born in 1945 in the Bronx. My family were very middle class. There were 3 of us kids living in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Bronx. 3 kids in the bedroom. Mother and father slept in a pull-out couch in the living room. The half room was the kitchen and eating area. Okay, so it was small. Did that for 10, 12 years. And during that time, I never thought that we didn't have a lot. It was very normal, the crowding in that apartment, what we ate, what we did. Never went to Hebrew school, never went to any kind of Jewish education. We were culturally Jewish.
Right.
We had a Hanukkah, a menorah. Later on, we had a Christmas tree that we added on to, called it a Hanukkah bush.
Right. Right. So
and
you
we
were
had-
like sort of my Christian version, right? 'Cause
Okay,
we were
all
like
right, yeah, yeah.
culturally
Culturally
Christian,
Jewish.
whatever, but it was
We
like Christmas, Easter,
Yeah,
the big
right.
holidays. You did your confirmation, but it wasn't like, other
No,
than my dad did go to
there
church.
was no religion to it.
Yeah, but it
If
wasn't
God
really.
existed, he was somewhere, it was he, she, whatever, was somewhere
Right.
out there, and there was no connection to God and us, none, zero. We were culturally Jewish, and if anything, food was our religion. Eat, you gotta eat or you'll die, Being the skinniest person in my family, it was like, oh my God, you're gonna get sick and die. So I was thin for a while, and then I finally caught on that, food is good, I could eat. And then it was, okay, you're fat, now you have to diet. But that was years later. So I grew up in the Bronx. We got a larger apartment once my father's mother died, and he didn't have to support her apartment at all. So we did a little bit better. But the first incident that I had that said, oh my gosh, was when I was 7 years old. I had an emergency appendectomy. And 7 years old, I was never in a hospital before, except for when I was born. And it was a strange world. I was in pain and ushered into the emergency room, the operating room. And this man behind me with this mask saying, just breathe deeply. I said, no, I don't want to breathe that stuff. It stinks. That was ether. And he put the mask on me. He says, just, I'm a friend of your daddy's. You'll be okay. And of course, I went out. But before I disappeared, I saw a swirling vortex, like a checkerboard, swirling, 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 swirling. And I disappeared through it. I shot through it and went somewhere. Now, that was in 1952. So it was so vivid, I could still remember it and see it today. That was my first weird experience.
Right.
It was weird. And of course, I didn't even know how to describe it. And every time after that I had surgery or I had nitrous oxide for dental work, I said, well, maybe I'll disappear again. I never did again. I was very disappointed. So the next weird thing was when I was about 13, I was lying in bed. I had a sore throat and a cold or fever, whatever. And it must have been either late afternoon or early evening when I looked up from the bed, and there was this towering, dark, hooded being. So scary. I couldn't see a face. I thought it was the angel of death, like from A Christmas Carol, the specter of death. And I screamed for my mother, and it disappeared. Then the next day I was fine, but I didn't know what it was, but it was certainly not of this earth. And if I had a high fever and I was hallucinating, okay, But I did find out later what that was, and I'll tell you about it as we go along. So that was my teenage years, nothing remarkable. I started dating when I was 16 or 17, and I made a decision at 15 to go to nursing school.
Right.
My mother said, be a teacher or be a doctor, and then you could get married and you don't have to work.
Well,
So
that's admirable, because back in the day, it wasn't be a teacher or a doctor. That's a pretty
no, be a teacher or nurse. I'm sorry, did I
or
say doctor?
nurse. Okay.
No,
I was getting
no,
ready to
no,
say.
don't be a doctor. We can't afford to send you to medical school. No, 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 no. No, be a nurse or be a teacher. Those are the
Well, it's
two
because
best
that's
things
what
to do.
women were back then. They were,
Yes, it was.
they
And then
weren't
you got
doctors.
married, had babies, and you'd never had to work again.
Yeah.
You can retire for the rest of your life. You just get a husband and you'll be okay. You don't have to work. You're set. That's it. That is life. Very limited.
Right.
Very limited, but that's all I knew. So I went to nursing school when I was 16 because I graduated school when I was high school when I was 16. And that's my first experience with the tarot cards. Is that how you pronounce it, tarot?
Yeah. Or tarot. Yeah.
Tarot. I was working on the
Not
psyche.
Torah. Not Torah.
Not Torah. No, not Torah. No, 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 no. So I was working on the psych ward, and one of the patients there, her name was Mady, not Maddie, Mady. And she said to me, she was my age. She said, can I read your future? Oh, yeah, right. Oh, good, good. I want to know my future. Okay. So she gets out the cards, and they look like really weird to me. And she says, aha, you're going to get pregnant and you're going to need an abortion. You're going to get an abortion. Now, this was horrifying because, first of all, I was, and two, abortions weren't even legal then. So
Yeah.
the fact it was scary. Okay, so that, by the way, that never came to pass, but that was my first initiation into someone trying to tell me the future. So actually, I did get interested in fortune telling, and I went to a fortune teller in Manhattan, and she did my palm. I see two men in your life. One has an initial E, and the other has an initial C.
Ooh.
Now, I didn't know anybody with those initials.
Right. Then.
Yeah, I thought reading, and she also had a Ouija board. So I went out and I bought a Ouija board. So
Oh, yeah.
okay, that's another story for another time.
No,
But
tell
anyway,
tell the Ouija board story about with Ed.
well, I did meet an Ed.
Right.
Okay, and I married Ed. But before we got married, we were dating, and I had just gotten this Ouija board, and I said, "Oh, can I take it out and we'll do a reading?" He says, "What's that?" And you have to know my husband is a saint, but he's an engineer, totally straight. Okay. So I take out the Ouija board. He says, well, what do you do with that? And I said, we ask it questions and it tells you the answer. He says, well, what do you want to ask it? I said, when we're going to get married. And he goes, oh, well, we'll get married. You don't have to do that with the board. I said, we're going to get married? Oh, wonderful. Does that mean we're engaged? Can I tell my mother? Bad Mady.
A sneaky way to talk a guy into marrying you.
But it worked. And let's see, I met him in August, and that was November. So we got married in June. So it was a pretty fast, eventful thing. So that's my story about the Ouija board and fortune telling. So I've settled down after that.
It was a little more accurate than the tarot reader in the psych hospital.
Well, much more accurate than her. But the C person came into my life later, and that was the cult leader,
Right.
Chase.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I had a great first 30 years or whatever. It was super. I had two little kids, and
well, you were Catholic for a while too. When did?
Like, you're rushing me.
I'm rushing you.
I was Hindu.
Well, I was trying to stay on the theme of like your
everything.
religious, journey.
Oh, well, okay. You gotta give me a chance to smoke marijuana, smoke pot.
Okay,
because
tell that story.
that's what did it. Okay. Friends of ours gave us a joint. We didn't smoke, never. I think I had a couple of puffs, a few years before, but nothing. I never did anything.
So what
So,
year would this have been?
huh?
What
This was
what
90,
what year
what?
would this have been? Like in the 60s sometime?
No, this was 73.
Okay.
73.
Okay.
So kids were 2, 3 years old. So we're smoking a joint before we go to sleep, before we go to bed. And I started hallucinating. I was not there. I was gone. I was the only one who shared that pot who had any kind of hallucinatory experiences. I didn't just hallucinate it. I was in hell. I was in hell with the devil. And I was surrounded by demons laughing and dancing and fire and all that. And I was being assaulted, sexually assaulted by the devil. And I was terrified. I was totally, totally frozen with fear. And I started to pray. I prayed to every single name of God, Hebrew name of God, Elohim, Adonai. I prayed to God in every name of God I could think of. And I got so desperate, I prayed to Muhammad. Then I prayed to Allah. Now, for a Jew, that's something. But the hardest name, the one I saved for last because I didn't want to utter, was Jesus Christ. And I said, Jesus, help me. And all of a sudden, hell was gone. I was in a beautiful, peaceful, loving location. And the hallucination ended. Well, that blew me away because for a Jew to even think of calling on Jesus for anything is,
Right.
it was hard. And I didn't know how to make sense of it. That was my first ontological shock. Not long after that was my second one. Started meditating. Friends of ours, he was our best man at our wedding, became alcoholic, and we stopped socializing with them. And then they called us up to say they're moving to Iowa. They're selling the house and everything in it. Would we be interested in any of their possessions? So we went to see them, and they told us this story. Now, these were falling down drunks, literally. The last time we had seen them, we had dinner and went to a movie with them, and they were literally barely able to pick themselves up off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And we prayed for them driving home. They refused to be driven home. So we stopped socializing them because it was very unpleasant, because we hardly drank at all, maybe a glass of wine or whatever. Anyway, so they told me that they started doing transcendental meditation, and they stopped drinking. It was a miracle for them. They became very involved with the organization, became teachers, and now they were recruited to teach at Maharishi University. They were even levitating. They were flying. Well, not really, but
Yeah.
they were taking courses on levitation. So, of course, flying was one of my dreams since I was 7 years old, flying off into the wilderness there. So I wanted to fly. And so there was a TM center in the town I lived in, so I got initiated. Now, they say it's not a religion, but that's bull, because they initiate you in front of an altar to their guru, and you're given what they say is unique, a mantra that only you have it. So I started meditating with my unique mantra, 20 minutes twice a day. And on the third day, I had just an incredible experience of bliss. I entered this glowing gold. I can't even begin to describe it, except my mind was blown with light and love. It was very beautiful. So I rushed back to the center and I said, well, what did I experience? This was just incredible. So the TM instructor said, well, you're just de-stressing, unstressing. I said, what? That's unstressing? Well, it wasn't, but he didn't want to talk about it. He says, well, if you want to learn more, you got to take more courses. So I took another course that didn't help me at all either. I just spent another $1,000 or whatever, hundreds of dollars. And It took me a long time to learn from other people, from ex-TMers, that there's only 13 mantras for the whole world. So it's not unique at all for anybody. It's just part of the con, you know. But
Yeah.
at right, I started meditating, and I enjoyed meditation. Doesn't matter. There's a million, as you know, Brenda, there's so many types of meditation, so many forms, so many ways you could alter your state.
Right.
So, but the
Unless, of course,
thing,
like me, who can't
what's that?
meditate. Unless, of
You
course,
don't
you're like
meditate?
me, who struggles to meditate.
You don't meditate?
I.
No?
It's hard for me. Yeah.
Is, well, you know, meditation is not easy. It's easy to start. It's easy to practice, but getting somewhere is something else. I mean, the expectations, especially after having such a wonderful experience, I kept hoping I would have it again. I did, but once more, but it was very minor compared to the first time. And anyway, it set me off in a mystical search. And I started reading books on Sufism, Hinduism, Buddhism, name an ism. And I read it and studied it because I realized that it wasn't the religion, it's the mystical practice that attracted me, that I wanted, that I
Right.
was looking for.
Right. That experience. Right.
That experience, yes.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ready to switch to Catholicism, but I did read books on Catholic mysticism as well. Thomas Merton was a favorite of mine.
Okay. So
So
how old were you about this time? Your kids were still young.
yes, about seven. I was going to say they're about 75. No, it was about 1975, 1976, because in 1977 I started working at the Red Cross. Um, they were in school, and I was bored, and I wanted to get my bachelor's degree. I had an RN. I was a registered nurse, but I didn't have a bachelor's degree. So I went back to school, and I started work at the American Red Cross. And that's where I met two very important people in my life. One of them was, uh, I'll tell you his name. Well, I call him Father Ted in the book. But he didn't work for the Red Cross. He was a volunteer at the Red Cross. So I ran into him and at the coffee pot. Now, I had never, ever in my life talked to a priest before. Never. I had gone to a Catholic wedding, but I never knew a priest or talked to a priest before. So there we are at the coffee pot, and he was telling me what he does at the Red Cross, and I was telling him what I did. I ran part of the blood program for the Red Cross. And we're chatting this and that, and I said, you know, I never talked to a priest before. He said, you haven't? Now, this is a guy who's, he's about my height, my age, friendly, and he's human. He's a human person, a real priest and a human person at the same time. Wow.
They
So
exist.
they exist. He says, well, you know, come to Mass sometime. Let's have lunch. Okay. So, you know, I'd never been to a Mass. So I went to the Mass. The church was down the street, and it was Hispanic church. And I spoke some Spanish, and and I went to Mass, which was in Spanish. It was beautiful. Oh, so lovely. Oh my goodness. And then we went to lunch in the rectory, and we had lunch once a week. And I don't know, I went to Mass a couple of times a month with him. We celebrated Mass, and we became good friends. We went to the beach, we took walks. We talked about spirituality, Thomas Merton and other mystics and blah, blah, blah. And after knowing him for about a year, I said to him, you know, I'd like to convert to Catholicism. I was very attracted to the Eucharist. That's what did. I felt each time I watched, listened, went to attended Mass, I saw the Eucharist as something extraordinarily beautiful. The body and blood of Jesus, you know, symbolically or spiritually, cosmically, whatever way you want to put it.
Right.
And I thought he was going to faint. What? He said, are you kidding me? I said, yeah, I want to converse. So I did.
So
And inwardly, I said to myself, I'll try for a year. I'm going to follow the church calendar for a year and try it out. Now, as a Jew who was well aware of the prosecution, the martyrdom, the massacres of Jews in Spain and Italy, Spain and Portugal, in the 14th century. It was really foreign. What made Catholicism okay was the fact that it was in a Spanish church, and the Mass was led by people who truly believed in what they were doing, what they were saying, what they were preaching. So that was pretty good. After a year, HUD was transferred, Father Ted was transferred out. I think they thought we were having an affair because we would go to Mass and have lunch in the rectory. So they transferred him to another parish.
Oh
And
no! Do you think that's why they transferred
I think so.
him?
I can't be
Really?
sure. I don't know. I
Oh
don't know.
my gosh!
I know. That's you don't know those things. All I know is he was transferred, and it's not uncommon for priests to be transferred after they've been someplace for a few years.
Right.
That's very common. That's
Yeah.
very common.
Right.
So in any case, at the same time, while working at the Red Cross, I met the sea person.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to stop you right here. Okay, because this is
Yeah.
where the story gets especially good. Okay, but I want to check in with a couple of people here who have joined us because we
Okay.
like. Here's our mutual friend here, Jennifer.
Hi, Jen. Oh,
Yeah, she says hello to us, and so she's sharing an experience that her brother paid $1,000 for his training and his personal mantra. So apparently, this
yeah.
is still going on.
The price. Oh, absolutely. The price has gone up a lot. Geez. And if he's still meditating or doing TM, I'll speak to him anytime. Oh,
What will you tell him?
he's in a cult. He's in
Yeah,
a cult.
transcendental
Okay.
meditation. Yeah,
It's definitely a cult. And they're trying to get it into schools. They're trying to get it into the prisons. But it is a cult. Especially $1,000 was cheap when I did it.
yeah,
Woo.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's only the beginning. Oh, after that, there's many more thousands of dollars of expenses. And if you want to learn how to fly, that's thousands of dollars. And I've seen videos of people flying. And you know what they do? They're on a rubber mat and they leap, they jump, they hop up and down, up and down. No one stays up 1 millisecond longer than what gravity would allow you. Boom, down they go.
yeah. So she
You
says he's
swear
scared
by
by
it.
it. Yeah.
Okay, I have some deprogrammers or exit counselors who will help him get out of it if he wants.
If he
So,
wants.
but that's a cult. And then I met this social worker at the Red Cross too. He was working in service to military families, and he's a very nice guy, a little bit younger than me, very friendly, um, and we became friends. And I tried to fix him up with a girlfriend. We even went out to lunch together. Him, my girlfriend, and myself. He was such a good hypnotist that he was able to put us both in trance in the middle of a noisy restaurant. That's how good at hypnosis he was. Very talented. We both regressed into another lifetime during the lunchtime. Anyway, so I assumed that their relationship went okay. I left them together for lunch. And the next time I saw her, I said, "How'd it go?" She said, I called her up and she said, "Do not ever speak to me again." That was the last I heard of her. I guess she had a bad experience with him. I had no idea why. She wouldn't tell me, nothing. So anyway, so we were friends, and at that point I had gotten my bachelor's degree and I was thinking for a master's. So he said, "Well, I'm going to get a master's too. Let's go to school together." So we did. We got our master's together at night at Central Connecticut State College, and he invited me into his psychotherapy practice. And at the same time, or before that actually, I had started to put on weight, and I asked if he would hypnotize me for weight loss. So he said, "Sure." Charged me $75, which I thought was cheap at the time. This is 1976. Maybe it wasn't that much. But anyway, I gave him the money, and he hypnotized me. And I do not remember anything about what happened during that hypnotic session, except that I got down to my desired weight. And for the 10 years that I knew him, I stayed that way. But he also did a hell of a lot more. He was able to put in suggestions to me that he could control my mood, what I thought. I learned that he was a shaman, a guru on his own, that he was a student originally of this guru that I had heard of, and he was now a guru. So he was a God man. So in a sense, he became my guru. Told me to stop doing TM because he didn't want to divert my attention to anything else. He had such good control over the way I thought that I used to think he could play my emotions like a guitar. He can make me laugh. He can make me cry just by very subtle changes. One time in our office, I saw him walk through a wall. Now, let me tell you, he did not walk through a wall, but I thought I saw him walk through a wall. One time walking down the street, I fell over nothing and saw him laughing. He made me laugh. I saw him laughing, which meant to me that somehow he made me trip. All right.
And in that moment, you thought he had something to do with that.
Oh, I knew he made me trip, but I didn't know how.
Right.
In a class, we took a class together, and the professor asked a question. I raised my hand to answer the question. I knew the answer. My mind went blank. Boom. There was nothing in my brain. My mind went blank. I couldn't think. I couldn't answer. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. And I looked at him, and he went, which meant he signaled me somehow that stopped my thinking. That's how much control. He was an excellent hypnotist, obviously, and he put in some post-hypnotic suggestions. And I just believed he was incredibly advanced. And I worked with him in the office for 10 years. We bought houses together. We invested in houses together that we finished and redid and re-upped. And he started a mortgage company, which I worked for a while. And what I didn't know, but it was horrible. It just got worse and worse and worse, and I had more doubts. And the expression I use is when you have doubts about something you don't want to face, you put it on a shelf in the closet. All right. So here I had this big shelf that was being weighted down by my doubts. And finally, it crashed.
Right.
It crashed.
Okay.
When he asked me to gouge people for an extra % on their mortgages, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I couldn't get out either.
Right.
Here it was 10 years in.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you again because I've got a lot of comments here. So I just want to check in with folks. And because, I know, Mady, you're interested in having a dialogue and answering people's questions.
Yeah, no, sure.
Right. So let me just check in here. So hi, Kathleen. I'm so glad you've joined us. So she's asking if we've listened to the podcast Guru, and I've not listened to it, but I've heard about it, and it's Rob was telling me about it actually, Kathleen, and from my understanding, it's about people who end up following these quote gurus, and kind of the dark path sometimes people can go down because they're just following people that they think are like
right, God,
something special, and then so I wanted to say hi to Francesca. She says hi, Mom. I texted her and told her better jump on the stream, support her mother. She's here. Francesca knows Mady. And hi, Teresa. I'm glad you're joining us as well. Okay, so you guys, if you have any specific questions for Mady, pop them in the comments. She's going to continue telling her stories because we got a lot to get through.
This is my gosh, we're early in the storytelling.
We're early here. We're early in storytelling. But just wanted to take a little bit of a break here. So all of this just came out of him hypnotizing you that one time?
No. See, what
No.
happens is, my guess is, he hypnotized me many times, or would make suggestions many times and put me in a trance. So it wasn't just that one time. It was constant reinforcing of control.
So he would be like in a conversation with you, and then he'd kind of slip into an induction where you were then in a trance like state and not really knowing it? Or was it part
I,
of like, how did it
I'm
happen?
not quite sure. All I could tell you is, when I learned to do hypnotherapy myself, I learned how to put people into trance without them knowing it. And I only did it one time, and not as a therapist. This was after I got out of the cult and I was working with ex-members of cults and treating them in therapy. And I was, gosh, deposed to be um, a witness, an expert, a material witness on a woman who was suing her cult, which took thousands of dollars from her. And I was deposed by the cult because I was going to be, I was going to testify in her behalf. And the two lawyers that the cult hired, and I won't mention what cult it was, they're very famous people in that cult.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And they attacked me verbally, aggressively during the deposition. So I had been trained in neurolinguistic programming, and I used it in therapy. I have to tell you, when I did use hypnosis in therapy, I always explained to the person, to my client, what I was doing, how I was going to do it, and always got their consent. You have to be reliable, you have to be trustworthy. You cannot use these altered states to your advantage and their disadvantage. Happened to me. So in any case, these two women were aggressively questioning me, and I used techniques I learned during neurolinguistic program to put them in a trance. I slowed down their speech. Don't ask me how. This is now what, 25 years ago. Slowed down their speech by matching them in their mannerisms, in their speech, in their use of words, how they looked, how they talked. And I slowed them down so they were no longer attacking me. And questions, they had a hard time formulating questions to ask me. Then we took a break for lunch, and they reported back to their superiors and wanted to know what was happening. And they must have gotten slammed because they didn't get anything from me. And they come back from lunch like lions attacking me. That was it. I couldn't get them into trance. I couldn't slow them down, but
They
that's
figured out you'd
the,
done a number on them.
oh yes.
Okay, so we
Oh
have
yeah.
a question here.
Hmm.
What is the difference between TM and regular meditation?
Okay. TM teaches you to use a mantra and to say the mantra over and over and over. Um, and that'll put you into an altered state. Now, what they don't tell you is the mantra is a Hindu deity. They don't tell you that's a god or goddess of Hinduism. They don't tell you that you got one of the 13 mantras that they give to the world. It's not unique to you. There are many forms of meditation, uh, countless forms of meditation. Looking at a light, breathing deeply, evenly. Um, there are walking meditations. There are many ways of putting yourself into a relaxed state, an altered state, without doing a Hindu god or goddess.
Right.
All right. So there's many forms of meditation. It's important. I still meditate. I don't use the mantra, obviously, but uh, we can get into a whole discussion about altered states of consciousness, because meditation is one of many altered states of consciousness. Now, we know of sleep, waking, um, medication, changes in consciousness, um, uh, even epileptic seizures are a change in consciousness.
Right.
All right. So
Uh-huh.
there's multiple. multiple forms or types of consciousness aside from the awake, alert type of consciousness. So anytime you have an altered state of consciousness, you can put yourself into a trance or into a meditative state. Whether you self-hypnotize yourself, you learn how to do that, or you sing, or you breathe, or you look at certain things, mandala, a light, a fire, a flame,
Mm-hmm.
um, the countless. I can't, begin. What is the difference between them? The purpose is to go into an altered state of consciousness so that you're going in rather than out.
Right.
So
But
the
but TM is a certain type of meditated, it's a program that teaches a certain type of meditation, but the organization of the program is such that they're making a profit off of you. And like,
yes, well,
how is it described as a cult? I mean, just
okay.
briefly, like,
First
why
of
is it
all,
a cult?
there are thousands of people who do TM and just do it for meditation, and it's fine. The meditation is no different than any other meditation. What
Uh-huh.
makes it a cult is the promise they have of higher states of consciousness. Okay, so first you learn how to meditate. Then I took the science of creative intelligence, which will teach you about higher states of consciousness. The goal is cosmic consciousness, awareness of the universe. Cosmic, so that your your consciousness, that inner self, that part of you that's alive and survives death, the part of you that extends out into the universe, connects to all that is, so that you have awareness and knowledge beyond the self. That's the premise, that's the goal. In order to get there, you have to take more and more expensive courses. You become a teacher and a governor of the age of enlightenment, because enlightenment is the goal. Now, the meditation itself is no different than anybody else's meditation. It's no different than any other meditation where you could say or Jesus or Blessed Mother or
Right.
any other name of God.
And
It's
even the goal itself is not the problem. The problem is that you end up sort of buying into this hierarchy and paying to get.
right, right. As my two friends did. And they left for Maharishi International University to keep up everything, and they taught out there. Now, how did I learn about the effects of TM? When I got out of my cult and started and got involved in the Cult Awareness Network, I met two or three people who were very high up in the organization as far as they started doing TM when they were 16 years old, became teachers, lived in Maharishi International University, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then got out. And those two guys, Pat Ryan and Joe Kelly, bless them. I met them very early on when I got out of my cult, and they taught me a lot, and they helped other people get out of TM. But it definitely entrapped them for 20 years, okay, until they got out. Because when you're in it, you can't get out of it unless you really, either you're deprogrammed or exit counseled out, or you have the shelf break and you realize, it's over. I can't do this anymore. Okay. So people leave cults in a variety of different ways. For me, my cult leader left for Florida. He decided he didn't want to live in Connecticut anymore. Thank God he left, because then I could have a life. I couldn't separate myself from him because I signed a contract saying that I couldn't work. I couldn't be a therapist within 50 miles of his office. So I couldn't work. I couldn't have a job. I couldn't do therapy anywhere near that office. I had thousands of dollars hooked up into mutual investments in real estate, which I lost a good deal of as a partnership broke away. So I was tied in and couldn't get out. And that's the way many people are in a cult, is they have invested so much of their being, not just money, but their being, their life, their efforts, their energy into the worship of a guru or the teacher of a, it doesn't have to be a guru. It could be, you can have any kind of cult. You can have a book cult. You can have a cult, a ballet cult, a music cult, a martial arts cult, Catholic cults. They're cults within the Catholic Church. They're cults within every church. All right, including their cults and subcults of Judaism. It's not the religion that gets you. It's the fact that you have a malignant narcissist who entraps you because they offer you something that you want. Whether, to me, it was to lose weight at first. Or they'll offer you the possibility of fame, money, power,
Mhm.
but the enlightenment, surely. Or they'll offer you the power and the defeat of your enemies, people you're afraid of, people who you feel threatened by, whether they're poor people or black people or red people or whatever.
Mhm.
There is a malignant narcissism that says, I can give you something no one else can. And because I love
I
you,
alone
value you,
can fix it.
I alone can fix it. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So I'm not going to go into the traits of cult leaders because it's pretty scary and it's in the book. I've written about it. In fact, that was one of my favorite speeches to give, talks to give at the Cult Awareness Network and ICSA conferences is the psychopathology of cult leaders. Their greed, their narcissism, their lack of any kind of empathy. They have no use for anybody but themselves. They are the supreme, and everybody else is a tool. In any case, that's the cult leader, and that's in there. But I got out. I wrote books. I helped other people get out. I talked. I lectured. I traveled. And then we moved to Vermont. Hey, I'm free. I'm really free. And I started a whole new leaf working with veterans and learning how to be a better therapist. And in that chapter of the book, I tell my angel stories because I have so many of them. People who have encountered angels in their lives that saved their life. I had one. I have an angel story, and the veterans that I work with had angel stories too that saved their lives. So that was kind of neat, and some of them wrote their own stories in the book too.
Yeah. So
But
veterans and angels are a thing.
oh my gosh, veterans! Well, I once saved my life. I'm pretty sure. So I saw my angel in a horseback riding accident. Actually, I was walking. A friend of mine had gone riding. It was a hot August day, and we borrowed we rented two horses for a couple of hours, and then when we got back to the stables, we walked them to because we were all sweaty, and her horse was right in front of her. She was leading it. I was right behind her horse, leading my horse, and suddenly her horse kicked out to my horse and me. And if you ever saw a horse kick, it is fast. You
Right.
don't see it coming. It's a strike out. And my horse reared right on top of me. So between the kick and the rearing, I was dead. I would have been dead. But for whatever reason, whatever, I rolled. I leaped and threw myself out of the way. And I looked up, and 20 feet away from me was a monk in a brown robe smiling at me. And I said to my friend, do you see him? Do you see him? And by that time he was gone. That was my angel. He saved my life. So I always love to hear angel stories and other people too, as well. So, but you know what? I think what I haven't talked about is reincarnation. Is that a big subject on your?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Well, you know that we interviewed Joe Mancini,
Of
regression
course.
therapist, right? Our
Silly,
mutual
silly,
friend,
silly
right?
Mady.
Yeah.
Well, I have had several hypnotic sessions. And the first one I didn't believe at all because there was, I was about 25 and raise my hand when someone asks for a volunteer. Can I have a volunteer from the office? Who wants to be regressed? Oh, me, do me. I had my hand in his face. He couldn't refuse me. So he hypnotized me in front of the group and went back, and he's, put me in trance. And there he was. He said, look at your feet. What do you see? I looked at my feet and I said, they're brown and they're dirty. I'm barefoot. Oh, what are you wearing? Well, I don't know. It looks like animal skins or rags. I can't tell. Wasn't happy. He wasn't happy with that at all. So then he said, okay, age, go ahead, 10 years, whatever. What are you now? Well, I'm about 15. Okay, look around you. Well, I'm in a little hut and I'm hungry. And I have a baby and he's hungry too. And I think we're sick. Okay, that was enough. He didn't want to hear anymore. Now, would anybody consciously want to have that as their first hypnotic aggression? Couldn't I have been Joan of Arc, Queen Mary? Couldn't I have been anyone other than this poor starving peasant girl? That's who I was. Okay. So, for those people who say, oh, it's your imagination, you're just getting what you want, it's not real. Let me tell you, that was very real to me, and I'll never forget that. And that was 50 years ago. And once I learned how to do hypnosis, I hypnotized myself the next time. I wanted to know if I was alive at the time of Christ. And so I put myself into trance and went back. And I asked myself, was I alive at the time of Christ? Well, the answer was no. But I was in Palestine, Israel, whatever you wanted to call it, about 50 years after he passed. And my father was a merchant on the caravan trail, the main caravan trail between Rome and Jerusalem. And it was on the west bank of what's now Israel or Palestine. And the houses were built into the hillside. And the town was small, but vibrant because it was a merchant town. And I was a happy child and grew up and got married, this and that. And okay, I did have a spiritual experience in that town. Whether I saw Jesus or spirit, I do not know. All I know is very beautiful. A couple of years later, my husband had to go to Israel for his work. He was the Israeli aircraft industry work with his company, Ball Bearings.
Okay, so you're saying a couple years after you took yourself on the journey to this past life, then your husband goes to Israel.
With me.
With you, okay.
Oh yeah, I had to go with him. I had been to Israel several years earlier when I graduated nursing school. I went with a friend to Israel, but this time he went and I went, and he did his business in Jerusalem. No, it was actually Tel Aviv, and we stayed at a hotel in Tel Aviv. And I wanted to find out if the town that I had dreamt or hypnotized myself to really existed, and I couldn't find it on a map. So I went down to the taxi stand and I found a taxi driver that spoke Arabic, Hebrew, whatever. And I told him he wanted the town. I told him it was a dream. I didn't tell him I hypnotized myself. I told him I dreamt that I lived as a child in a town called Ixtabar. I can't even pronounce it. It was that difficult, Ixtabar. And I couldn't find it on a map. So he had a big map of the area. And he says, well, there's no Ixtabar, but the closest I could see is Iktaba. Okay, can you take me there? Well, sure. You pay him, he'll take you there. He said, Israel is not very large east to west. It's like 50 miles from the Mediterranean to the West Bank or whatever. I could be wrong about the numbers. So we got in the car, we got in the cab, and we're driving, and then we hit a dirt road, down a dirt road, in and out amongst whatever barren land there was with fig trees or olive trees, until we came to I can't say it was a town because it didn't look like a town, but there were houses built into the hillside, into just the way that I saw in my dream. He said, okay, this is Ektaba. We didn't see a soul. He said, you stay in this cab. I'm locking it up. It is dangerous. Do not open the door for anyone but me. He had the key. So he went to find the sheikh, the head of the village. And there I am, 10 minutes waiting. You know, boy, it looks weird, but it looks eerily familiar. And he comes jogging back to the cab, gets in and says, okay, we're going, boom. Well, what did you find out? He says, well, the sheikh said that the town's name was Ixtabar, the same as the name I gave it. And 2,000 years ago, it was a major merchant town on the road between Jerusalem and Rome. So blew my mind.
Yeah.
I got it. I
Ma-
got it.
Maddie, I want you to tell the story about, you know, your parallel life, or what do you call it? When you went to
Oh,
Jerusalem or
okay.
Israel when you
Oh,
were young, and that whole thing.
oh, then okay. This
Right.
that yeah. All
Yeah, I love
right.
that story. Tell that story.
Oh, you like that story. That's the yeah. Okay. When I graduated nursing school, I had a good friend, Joan, and Joan wanted to go to Israel and yes, we went to Israel and Rome and
And you were how
oh,
old?
I'm sorry, Greece. I was Greece. I was 22.
Okay. Okay. All
This
right.
was 1966.
Okay.
Right? 1960. I was 22, 21 years old. Oh God. Oh my. Anyway, so
Young
we
and
went,
nubile.
huh?
Young and nubile.
Oh my gosh. So we went to Israel because I had a fascination with it. This was before way before my hypnosis. But I wanted to go to Greece and Israel. Those are the two countries I wanted to see, and so did she. So we get to Israel and we travel around, and um, we went all around the country, and we joined a group, a busload of people that went from Haifa to a commune up in a kibbutz up in the north. And we stopped at Haifa, which is a beautiful, beautiful city on the coast of Israel. And I don't know where I was. I got separated from the group, probably was looking for a bathroom, knowing me. And I see the bus down the street, and I'm walking down the street, and in the opposite direction, coming towards me, was a young man about my age, gorgeous. Paul Newman, gorgeous. And he stops in front of me, and we look at each other, just staring at each other. And he starts to speak in Hebrew, and I start to speak in English. He starts to speak in French, and I answer in Spanish, and we're just like stuck. And the bus honks. My baggage, my passport, everything is on the bus. And I had to make a decision. Stay with him, go a complete stranger, or get on the bus. What would you do, Brenda?
Well,
Brenda, what would you do?
if my passport was on the bus, I think I'd have to go back to the bus.
Well, I could go back to the bus and get the passport.
Oh, well, that sounds good.
Would you have
And then
stayed in
go with the
Israel?
hot guy.
Oh my God, was he gorgeous. Anyway, Paul Newman. Paul Newman when he was young. All
Yeah.
right, so the bus honks, and we just looked at each other longingly, and I went to the bus. But you know what? That haunted me. That haunted me after that. What would have happened if I stayed? So skip ahead 50 odd years, all right?
It haunted
What?
you 50 years,
Yes. Not that it haunted me,
but
but
you
I
just
never
always
forgot
remembered
it.
that hot guy.
I just remembered.
Yeah.
But it was more than just seeing a hot guy. There was something there. So anyway, so I had Joe, who was on your show. He said, Mady, I got to hypnotize you. Find out what would have happened if you made another decision. Okay, so he put me in trance. As you know, I'm a good subject.
Okay, but
So,
but we have to like talk about sort of the theory of, the theory of,
okay,
like, we have these parallel lives where, we have one life where we follow a certain path, we make certain decisions and we follow a certain path, but we have parallel lives where maybe we took a different path. Like maybe we didn't go
exactly.
to college, maybe we stayed
Right.
home
Now,
and
this
raised a baby
is
or whatever, right?
right. This is part of quantum theory as well as Seth. These comes from the readings of Seth.
Right.
That one each time we make a choice, we go on that path.
Right.
However, if we make a different choice, whether it's who we marry or whether we go to this school, that school, do this or that, small choices, big choice, we're constantly making choices. And that we have parallel lives according to quantum theory with each choice we make.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Not only that, if you really want to go into an existentialist look at this, the only thing about our world now in 3D, right now, what you and I grasp, can feel or touch or whatever, time exists only in this world. Outside of this dimension, there's no such thing as time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So all our past lives, all our choices, our future lives are within consciousness on some level. Okay? So according to Sethian theory, and according to this theory too, you could find out what would have happened if you made that other choice.
Yeah, if you go to one Joe Mancini and he regresses you.
That's right. So he said, Maddie, you should go. Okay. So I had gone to see him about something else. And before you know it, I'm being regressed to see what would happen if this person and what would happen if I stayed there? What
Yeah.
would have happened if I retrieved my passport, my luggage, or maybe not, just left with him? And so there we were in trance and going back in and saying, okay, what happens next? Well, we go to a cafe for coffee or whatever, and he gets a friend, calls a friend to come who translates for us. And we start talking and talking and talking. And I stay at his place. And we make love, and we're in love. And I learn Hebrew. Now, as a nurse and as a Jew, I am very desirable to make Aliyah and to move to Israel. They want me. So it was very easy for me to stay. We got married to the surprise and shock of our families. Um, and this was 1966. Moving into 1967, I got pregnant. We lived in a kibbutz um, on the border, West Bank, Northwest Bank of Israel. And in 67 was the Six-Day War. And he, like all eligible men, went to war. And I stayed behind in the kibbutz. He survived the war. I didn't. The kibbutz was overrun and I was slaughtered. I was killed along with everybody else there, or a lot of people there. And that was the end. So that's what I found out. And you know what? I felt a lot of peace with that. Made sense to me that that might have happened.
Hmm.
And I was okay with that. And I let it go. And I was glad I did the regression. So, so not only can you be regressed to the past, but to a different life in the present, you can be regressed you can do a progression to the future. So, yeah, find out what happens next.
Yeah.
Okay,
Love that story.
huh?
I love that
You
story. Although I think I
like
would have really grieved for what was her name? You named her, right?
Oh, we did gave her an alias, Athena.
Athena. I think I would have really
Mhm.
grieved for Athena though,
Why? What would you have
because she
grieved for?
died.
But no one
She and her baby
dies.
died. But we're all eternal spirit souls, and
Brenda, this life, we're just borrowing our bodies. I've had a gazillion lives before. I mean, in all over the universe. I've lived all over the universe. You know, in reading the book that I had a regression in 2012 because I wanted to know what happened in between lives. What happens in between lives? Who are the spirit guides you meet? Why do you choose this life? Why do you want to experience this or that? What do you need to know to grow? So
yeah,
I had a regression um, um, to find that out. So I paid a lot of money and traveled a long distance to the senior hypnotherapist from this particular school of hypnosis, and he puts me in trance and has me step off the cloud or whatever into this past life, and I'm swimming underwater. I'm a water creature. I can't even like a mermaid, manatee, dolphin. I'm underwater in a water world. Well, that got me out of trance fast. And he said, and he put me back in and this and that. And we talked about it afterwards. He says, well, you're a hybrid soul. I said, what? What's a hybrid soul? He says, well, you're part alien. Well, I found out later that's BS, but so that was the one hip. I threw out the CD of the tape of the session, which was an hour or two, because I thought it was all baloney. I should have thrown that out. I had a lot of them invested in that CD, but anyway, I had another regression by one of Dolores Cannon's senior students. And I went back into a water world as well as other worlds. And it was quite incredible. And what I found out is there's no such thing as a hybrid soul. We all spark off from the creator somewhere, sometime, someplace.
so there's no hybrid soul in that you're not like
This
half quote alien and half human,
no,
right?
no. No, all souls are made out of the same fabric, the
Which is
source of the
source.
creator.
Yeah.
Okay? Your dog has a soul. Your cat has a soul. But we're all learning and growing and advancing. So even a whale or a porpoise, which are very bright creatures, are advancing each lifetime. They're learning and growing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I could be a water creature or an ant or a mantis or this or that, that just goes to show you that the makeup of that soul is part of our creator. And we're all learning and growing. And consciousness is in everything. And it's all learning and growing. At least this is what I believe in.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter where you start out, what planet, what universe, what being you started out.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay. Okay.
all right.
Okay. So, it's getting late, but I feel like we'll be remiss if we don't talk at all about your work with MUFON. So,
Okay.
can you just tell us a little bit about how you got started with the organization and maybe give us one story
Oh,
um,
okay.
about that?
And I'll give you the fast version.
Okay.
2015.
Okay.
2015. I'm already living in Virginia. I've done Reiki. I've done animal communication. I've done past life regressions. I have all kinds of volunteer work that you already know about that you mentioned. And I'm preparing a chapter for a book for the International Cultic Studies Association on a treatment modality for treating ex-members of cults, a cognitive processing therapy. And I'm presenting the paper on it at our semi-annual conference in Santa Fe. So I was invited to go to Dulce, New Mexico, where two friends of mine were going to go to the conference with me because they're members. One of them was a member, And we decided to go to Chaco Canyon and visit Chaco, which is an incredible place. And so I flew into northern New Mexico, went to Chaco, then we went to Dulce. Now, Dulce, New Mexico is very famous or infamous for a tall mesa that's overlooking the town. I didn't know anything about Dulce, New Mexico, which is the heart and capital of the Hickory Apache Reservation. I didn't know anything about it, so I Googled it, and I found out that, I believe, Archuleta Mesa is the secret base of a joint military and alien experimental research base underground. Oh, give me a break, you know? I didn't believe that, but my friends did. They saw flying saucers. The Apaches certainly knew about this place, and there's military stuff all around it. So I go to Dulce and read about it, and that was my awakening about UFOs. So I went to a MUFON meeting in town in Virginia, and expressed an interest in it. And a few months later, Dulce had a conference. I went back to Dulce for the UFO conference, did some more reading, had another hypnotic regression, which I won't get into. You'll have to read the book about that one. That was beyond weird. If you think the other ones were weird, this one was even weirder, by Barbara Lamb. And I got interested in MUFON and became a field investigator. And when I found out about the Experiencer Research Team as a retired psychotherapist, I really wanted to do this. I wanted to help other people who experienced contact or abductions or both with non-human intelligences. And that's 5 years ago. And I've spoken now to 300 people who have had those kinds of contact experiences. And I've had contact experiences. So I learned that when I was 13 years old and saw the big, tall creature, that was actually a healer, a Nebulan healer that healed me of that, whatever illness that was. And I was told that by someone I trust, but I also saw pictures of Nebulan healers, and said, oh my God, I had a healing when I was 13. So yes, that's Benny the Destroyer.
Yeah, I got one down here too.
Benny the Destroyer, aptly named. He and his brother Jerry, Ben and Jerry. Oh God, they destroyed a lot of stuff in my house. But anyway, that's how I got into UFOs and experiencing it. And that's the last chapter of the book. The last part of the book, I
Yeah.
should say,
Yeah.
about my experiences with UFOs, my experiences with MUFON and the team. And it's really been a wonderful, wonderful thing. Can we have her back for more another time?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Diane really wants to meet you.
Now,
She's had so many
see what you're
experiences. So.
saying, I really need to meet with you. I have so many experiences. That's exactly why I wrote the book, because the people who read my book say, oh my gosh, those things, some of those things happened to me too. And that has been the blessing for me, because I sure haven't sold many, but the fact that people read it and say, wow, those things are important. You've had them too. Everybody has had some experiences. Many of us just bury it and don't want to think about it or can't understand what they mean. But
Right.
my only word of advice for all of you is to write them down. Keep a journal. Even if you just list the most bizarre dreams or important dreams, because I've had some really beautiful dreams too, along the same path, write down your weird experiences. Keep track of them, because they will start to make sense to you. You will start to understand them. And bless you. I mean, that's the most beautiful thing about life is the potential for growth and from learning from our choices and our experiences. And the one thing I concluded at the end of my book was, we're much more than our bodies. We're here. This body is all right. I wish it was thinner, but other than that, what can I say? But this is just a time, a level of time. We've been here many times before.
Mm-hmm.
We may be here many times afterwards. But we're here to grow and learn, to love, develop, and open our hearts, to be compassionate and giving and loving human beings. And that's what I learned in life.
Well, Mady, we're gonna have to get you back in the rotation soon because you have many more stories to share. I know, I know.
I know I'd love to answer questions too. If people have questions about their events, not that I'm going to tell them what it means, because the key is for you to discover the meaning of your life.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's beautiful.
yeah.
It's beautiful to even want to try.
Right. Well, we'll have you back, and or we'll put something together,
Okay.
for some
All
type of you know, I don't know, like a program or an offering, where people
right.
can share and um, get your perspective on things and share, you know, because you have a lot of knowledge and you have a lot of life experience and you're a great storyteller and you have a lot of great stories.
Oh, well,
And
thank you, Brenda.
and
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
you're very welcome. And I just want to remind you guys that so this is Maddie's book, Dogs, God, and UFOs, and you can find it on Amazon. You can get it in print, or you can get it in on Kindle. So, yeah, so get her book, um, and let me get back to her. Come here. Here we go. So yeah, thank you, Mady, for joining us, and thank you everyone for returning to Spirit Throw Me a Bone after these couple of weeks hiatus we had here. And I know I speak for everyone, and again, I want to thank you, Mady, for
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome.
and
Very welcome,
so
Brenda.
so I'm gonna let you go now. I'm going to offer a few more words.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, everyone is so appreciative, Mady. Um,
Okay.
And
Thank you.
yes,
Thank you
yes,
very much.
Julie is a
All right.
fellow nurse. So
Oh,
yep, she is.
all right.
Right.
Good.
So we're gonna sign off with Mady right now, but you guys stay tuned because I have a couple of announcements. But thank you again, Mady, and we'll see you soon.
You're
Right.
very welcome. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you for having me on. Good luck to you.
Alrighty. Bye bye. Okay, guys. So thanks for joining us again, and gosh, the time just went by so fast. I know that you guys have questions in here, but we'll get Mady back and we'll have more conversation with her. And um, just want to remind you that you know what's next week? Next week is the last Sunday of the month. And what does that mean? That means it's Karma and Cocktail Time with the one and only Reverend Rob Banashek. And those of you who've joined us before, that we have a great time. It's just a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a lot of music, a bit of dancing, metaphysical Bible study, steampunk tarot. We have a good time. So, yeah, so be there or be square next Sunday. And so, Spirit Throw Me a Bone live every Sunday night at 8:30. So make sure that you subscribe on YouTube and hit that little bell. That way you'll get notifications. On Facebook, we are STMB on Facebook. So I've got a little. There you go. Facebook.com, STMB on Facebook. So like us there. Ta-da! Hit that like button. so, so that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I really appreciate Mady joining us as well.
Well, here we go.
Until next time.
Around again.
Same enchanted time, same enchanted channel.
We come.
We'll see you next week for Karma and Cocktails.
This is non-random, tandem
Bye-bye.
orbit. We're forever kin, right here with you. it be? I am your friend. You are to me a most precious, stellar partner, dancing love's geometry with me again and again and again and again. Everywhere you go, I'm right here with you. Everywhere you go, I'm right here with you. In case you needed to know if I was here, I'm right here with you. We're like the stars in the sky. They are made of light, and just like you and I, they are closely tied. We're of the same constellation. That's how we make it through the night. I'm right here with you. We made a vow, kept it right from the start, to help extract the poison from our medicine hearts. I just wanna thank you for doing your part. I promise you that I'll always do so in all our emotions, we've made a web, our patterns woven, we're common threads. There is nothing you could do to shake me loose. I've got you, I'm not leaving. So go climb your mountain and know your name. The call you answer springs from the same flame I do. And as you take your leap, just know before I fly into the deep, I'm right here with you. Everywhere you go, I'm right here with you. Everywhere you go, I'm right here with you. In case you needed to know if I was here, I'm right here with you. We're like the stars in the sky. They are made of light, and just like you and I, they are closely tied. We're of the same constellation. That's how we make it through the night. I'm right here with you. Everywhere you go, I'm right here with you. Everywhere you go, I'm right here with you. In case you needed to know